Life moves like a grand symphony, a masterpiece unfolding note by note. There are moments of triumph where the music swells, where the melody soars, and we feel the fullness of joy. Then there are times when the notes grow quiet, where silence lingers longer than we expect, and we wonder if the song has stopped altogether. But my friends, a song is not just made of sound, it is shaped by silence too. Every pause, every rest, every moment of waiting has its place in the great design. And you and I, we are not the composers, we are the instruments. Think about it. The violin does not create its own melody, the piano does not play itself. The instrument surrenders to the hands of the master. And in that surrender, something beautiful is born, but so often we resist. We want to take control, to write our own song, to force the music to go the way we think it should. We hold on too tightly to our own plans, our own timing, our own desires, believing that if we just try hard enough, we can shape our lives into what we want them to be. But have you ever heard an instrument fighting against the hands of the one playing it? It makes no music, it only makes noise. Some of you may feel like your life is just noise right now, like you're struggling to make sense of things, like nothing is coming together the way you hope. Maybe you've been working, striving, pushing, trying to make life go a certain way, and yet the doors remain closed. The opportunities slip through your fingers. The answers do not come. And in the quiet of your heart, you wonder, where is God in all of this? Why isn't he playing the music I expected to hear? But hear me when I say this. God has not abandoned you. He is not absent. He is not ignoring your prayer. He is the master composer, the one who sees the entire symphony when all you hear is a single note. He knows where the music is going even when you don't. And oh, if we could only trust him. If we could only place ourselves, our dreams, our fears, our struggles fully into his hands, how different would our lives be? Instead of anxiety, we would have peace. Instead of striving, we would have rest. Instead of noise, we would hear the beauty of a life surrendered to the one who knows the song from beginning to end. Think of a child who sits at a piano, pounding away at the keys, frustrated because they cannot make the melody sound right. But then the teacher steps in. With gentle hands, he guides the child's fingers to the right places. He corrects, he leads, he shapes the music into what it was meant to be. The child has two choices: fight against the teacher or yield to his touch, and so do we. My friends, you were not made to carry the weight of writing your own song. You were created to be played by the hands of the one who formed the heavens and set the stars in their place. And when you let go, when you truly, fully place everything in God's hands, you will find that your life is not random, not chaotic, not meaningless. You will begin to hear the music of grace, the rhythm of purpose, the harmony of divine love, weaving every moment together. So stop trying to force the melody. Stop wrestling for control. Stop living as though you have to figure it all out on your own. The most beautiful songs are not forced, they are surrendered. And so is the most beautiful life. We live in a world that tells us we have to be in control. We plan our days, map out our futures, and hold tightly to the things we believe will bring us security. We think that if we just work hard enough, prepare well enough, and stay strong enough, we can shape our lives exactly the way we want them to be. But deep down, we know the truth. Control is an illusion. No matter how tightly we hold on, life has a way of reminding us that we are not in charge. A phone call in the middle of the night, a job lost without warning, a loved one slipping away too soon, a door we were certain would open suddenly shutting before us. And in those moments, when our carefully built plans crumble like sand, fear grips our hearts. We ask, why is this happening? What am I supposed to do now? We scramble, we strategize, we try to fix what's broken, grasping for something, anything that will make us feel like we're in control again. But the more we fight, the more exhausted we become. There is a reason for that. We were never meant to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We were not designed to be the masters of our own fate. When we live with clenched fists, grasping at control, we are like a man trying to hold on to water. It slips right through our fingers. God never intended for us to live that way. He never asked us to figure it all out. He never told us to bear the burden alone. Instead, he invites us to surrender, to lay down our anxieties, our need to control, our relentless striving, and place it all in his hands. And that is not weakness, that is wisdom. Look at the birds of the air. They do not plant. They do not harvest. They do not store up for tomorrow, and yet they are fed. Look at the lilies of the field. They do not toil or spin, and yet not even Solomon in all his splendor was clothed as beautifully as they are. If God cares for them, how much more does he care for you? But we still resist, don't we? We say, but what if God doesn't come through? What if he doesn't do things the way I want? And that is the real struggle. Not just letting go, but trusting that his hands are better than ours. There's an old story about a little girl who had a string of imitation pearls. She loved them, clutched them in her small hands, and refused to take them off, even though they were cheap and starting to fall apart. One night, her father knelt beside her bed and asked, "Sweetheart, will you give me your pearls?" She hesitated. She loved those pearls. She had worn them every day. She shook her head and said, "No, Daddy, I want to keep them." But each night he would ask her again, gently, patiently, "Will you give me your pearls?" Finally, with tears in her eyes, she opened her hands and placed them in his. In return, he pulled out a velvet box and handed her a string of real, priceless pearls. How often do we do the same with God? We cling to what we think we need, convinced that if we let go, we will lose everything. But God is standing before us, asking us to trust him, asking us to open our hands, because he has something far greater in store. What if the things you are fighting so hard to hold on to are the very things keeping you from receiving his best? What if the control you refuse to surrender is the very thing standing in the way of the peace you so desperately seek? The tighter we cling to our own plans, the more we miss the wonders he has prepared. But when we let go, when we place everything in his hands, we find that we were never losing control. We were simply giving it back to the one who had it all along. There are moments in life when God seems silent, when the prayers we've whispered into the night go unanswered, when the doors we've knocked on again and again refuse to open, when we stand in the middle of uncertainty, searching for a sign, longing for direction, but hearing nothing. And in those moments, doubt creeps in like a shadow. We wonder if God has forgotten us. We ask, where is he? Why isn't he speaking? But silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. The pauses in life, the seasons of waiting, of stillness, of unanswered questions are not empty spaces. They are sacred interludes. They are the moments when God is working beneath the surface, shaping something we cannot yet see. Think of an artist painting a masterpiece. From the first brushstroke to the final detail, the canvas goes through many phases. At times it may look unfinished, chaotic, even unrecognizable, but the artist is not done. Every color, every shadow, every layer is part of the design. The masterpiece is not complete until the last stroke is made. And so it is with God's work in our lives. We see the unfinished canvas and think he has stopped painting, but he is still at work, always at work. Or consider a symphony. The music builds, the notes rise, the melody swells, and then silence, a pause, and for a brief moment the absence of sound feels unsettling. But that silence is not the end of the song, it is part of it. Without the pause, the next note would not carry the same power. The silence gives depth to the melody, just as seasons of waiting give depth to our faith. We are so quick to think that silence means God is not listening. But what if the silence is his way of teaching us to listen? What if he is not ignoring us, but preparing us? What if the waiting is not a punishment, but a process, refining us, strengthening us, drawing us closer to him? Think of Joseph, thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, unjustly imprisoned. Years passed, no explanation, no visible sign of deliverance. Yet, even in the silence, God was working. The prison was not the end of his story. It was part of the journey to the palace. Think of Moses tending sheep in the wilderness for 40 years. No miracles, no burning bush, just silence. But God was not finished with him. In that silence, he was shaping a leader, preparing a man to stand before Pharaoh, to part the Red Sea, to lead a nation to freedom. Think of Jesus lying in the tomb. A day passed, then another, and all of heaven was silent. But the silence did not mean God was absent. It meant something greater was coming. On the third day, the silence was shattered and death was defeated forever. Some of you are in that waiting season right now. You have prayed, you have sought, you have waited, and yet you hear nothing. But I want you to know that God is not finished with your story. Just because you cannot see him working does not mean he has not moving. Just because you cannot hear him speaking does not mean he has nothing to say. Sometimes the teacher is silent during the test, not because he is left, but because he is watching to see how you will trust him. Do not mistake the pause for the conclusion. Do not mistake God's silence for his absence. The delay you fear is not a detour. It is preparation for something greater. And when the time is right, when the refining is complete, when the masterpiece is ready, the silence will break and the music of his purpose will play in your life again. Pain is something we all try to avoid. We don't welcome suffering. We don't ask for heartache. When trials come, our first instinct is to pray them away, to ask God to remove the burden, to make the road smooth again. But what if I told you that the very thing you're asking God to take away is the very thing he is using to shape you? We don't always see it in the moment, but pain has a purpose. God never wastes our suffering. He never allows a trial without weaving it into something greater. What feels like a breaking is often a making. What seems like the end is often the beginning of something we cannot yet comprehend. Think about a sculptor. He begins with a rough block of stone, unshaped, untouched, ordinary. And with each strike of the chisel, a piece falls away. To the untrained eye, it may look like destruction, but the artist sees something more. He knows that every cut is necessary. He knows that each strike is bringing the masterpiece into view. The stone doesn't understand the process, but the artist does. And my friend, you are that masterpiece. God is the sculptor. The pain you feel, it is not meaningless. It is the chisel in the hand of the master. We see this throughout Scripture. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, falsely accused, imprisoned for years. Imagine what he must have felt. He had dreams of greatness, of purpose, of a future filled with promise, and yet his reality was suffering, rejection, and waiting. But God had not abandoned him. Every trial was a chisel strike, shaping him for something greater. And when the time was right, he stood second only to Pharaoh, positioned to save an entire nation from famine. What man meant for evil, God used for good. Maybe you are in a season where you feel like life is breaking you apart. Maybe you've lost something, someone. Maybe your dreams have crumbled and you're left wondering why God would allow such pain. But let me tell you something. God never allows suffering without purpose. He sees what you do not. He is shaping you for something beyond your understanding. Think of a pearl. A pearl is not born from comfort. It is formed through irritation, through pressure, through a wound that is healed over time. Without the struggle, there would be no beauty. Without the pressure, there would be no transformation. The same is true for you. Think of gold. It is refined in fire. The impurities are burned away, and what remains is something pure, something valuable, something strong. But the process is painful. The fire is hot. The refining is not easy. But the gold cannot shine unless it has been through the flames. We want the beauty without the pain. We want the strength without the refining. But my friends, it doesn't work that way. The very thing we run from is often the thing that will bring us closest to God, because in our suffering we learn to depend on Him. In our trials, we learn to trust Him. When we have nothing left to hold on to, we finally reach for the one who has been holding us all along, and maybe that's the point. Maybe God allows the chisel, the fire, the pressure not to destroy us, but to make us into something we could never become on our own. So don't lose heart. Don't let the pain convince you that God has forgotten you. The breaking you feel is not the end of your story. It is the shaping of something greater. And when He is finished, when the refining is complete, when the masterpiece is revealed, you will see that the suffering was never wasted. The chisel was never cruel. The fire was never without purpose. The pain you thought would break you was the very thing that made you. We spend so much of our lives searching for answers. We want to understand why things happen the way they do. We try to piece together the puzzle of our lives, looking for patterns, searching for meaning, trying to make sense of it all. And when things don't go the way we expect, when prayers seem unanswered, when doors remain closed, we ask, why? But faith does not always come with explanations. Trust does not always come with clarity. There will be times when the path ahead is hidden, when God's ways seem mysterious, when nothing makes sense, and in those moments we have a choice, to lean on our own understanding or to trust the one who sees what we cannot. It is human nature to want control, to demand answers, to insist on seeing the full picture before we take a step forward. But faith does not work that way. Faith is not about seeing, it is about trusting. It is about believing that even when we don't understand, God does. Imagine a child standing at the edge of a swimming pool. His father stands in the water, arms outstretched, saying, "Jump." The child hesitates. He cannot see what will happen between the edge and his father's arms. He doesn't know how the water will feel, if he will sink, if he will be caught. But the father knows. The father is ready. And the moment the child lets go, the moment he jumps, he finds himself safe, held, secure. That is the picture of faith. God does not always show us how everything will work out. He does not always explain the next step. But He stands before us, arms open, saying, "Trust me." Look at Abraham. God told him to leave his home, his family, everything familiar, and go to a land that He would show him. Not a land He described in detail, not a place Abraham could see ahead of time, but a destination that would only be revealed through obedience. And Abraham went. He didn't have the full picture, but he trusted the one who did. Look at Peter. He was in the middle of a storm, in a boat, rocking on the waves, and Jesus called him to step out onto the water. That was impossible. That defied logic. And yet, as long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked where no man had walked before. The moment he let fear take over, the moment he focused on the storm instead of the Savior, he began to sink, but Jesus caught him. He always does. Some of you are in that place right now. You are standing at the edge, uncertain, hesitant, afraid to take the next step because you cannot see where it leads. Maybe God is asking you to step into something new, to leave something behind, to trust Him in a way that feels uncomfortable, and you are waiting for more clarity, more assurance, more certainty before you move. But faith does not wait for certainty. Faith moves forward even when the path is unclear. We may not understand why God leads us the way He does. We may not always see the reason for the delays, the detours, the unanswered prayers. But one day when we look back, we will see that every step had purpose, that every road led exactly where it was meant to, that every unanswered question was an invitation to trust Him more. The question is not whether God can be trusted. The question is whether we will trust Him. So take the step. Release the need to understand everything. Stop waiting for perfect clarity before you obey. God never promised that we would see the whole picture, only that He would be with us in every step we take. and that is enough. So much of life is spent striving. We chase after security, after approval, after success. We hold on to burdens we were never meant to carry. We try to fix what is broken, control what is slipping, force what will not move. And in doing so, we wear ourselves down. We grow weary, exhausted by the constant need to figure everything out, to hold everything together. But we were never meant to live that way. There is a reason the human heart longs for rest. Not just the kind of rest that comes from sleep, but a deeper rest. The kind that settles the soul, that quiets the anxieties, that lifts the weight off our shoulders. And that kind of rest does not come from having all the answers, from having everything under control. It comes from surrender. It comes from laying everything, our worries, our fears, our future, in the hands of the one who holds the universe. Some of you have been carrying burdens for too long. You have been trying to handle it all on your own. You pray, but you do not release. You ask God for help, but then you take back the problem and try to solve it yourself, and it is wearing you down. But listen to what Jesus said. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He didn't say, come to me and I will give you all the answers. He didn't say, come to me and I will explain everything. He said, I will give you rest. Rest is not found in knowing how everything will work out. Rest is found in knowing that you don't have to. Think of a child in the arms of a loving father. That child does not have to worry about what tomorrow holds. He does not have to stay up at night wondering how the bills will be paid, how the storms of life will be navigated. He simply trusts because he knows he is cared for. And yet, how often do we live as though we have no father watching over us? How often do we let fear consume us when we are held in the hands of the Almighty? We trust God with eternity, yet we struggle to trust Him with tomorrow. We believe He has saved our souls, yet we hesitate to believe He will provide for our needs. But if we truly knew who He was, if we truly believed in His goodness, His faithfulness, His sovereignty, wouldn't we live differently? Wouldn't we let go of our need to control? Wouldn't we place every worry, every fear, every unanswered question into His hands and simply rest? Think of the disciples in the boat, caught in the middle of the storm. The waves were crashing, the wind was howling, and their hearts were filled. And where was Jesus? Asleep. The storm raged and He rested because He knew something they had forgotten. God was still in control. And when they woke Him, panicked, crying out, Lord, don't you care if we perish? He simply spoke and the storm was stilled. Some of you feel like those disciples. The storm is raging in your life. The waves of uncertainty are crashing around you. And you are wondering, God, do you see this? Do you care? Oh, my friends, He sees, and He cares, and He is still in control. The same God who spoke to the wind and waves speaks to your storm today. The same God who calmed the sea calls you to rest in Him. And when you finally release it all, when you place everything in His hands, you will find that the peace you have been searching for has been there all along. Let go, trust Him, and rest in the one who never fails. There comes a moment in life when we must decide, will we hold on to our fears, our doubts, our plans, or will we place everything in God's hands? Will we trust Him only in the easy moments, or will we trust Him when the road is uncertain, when the answers do not come, when life does not go as we expected? Trusting God is not just something we do when we feel like it. It is not a last resort, a safety net for when things fall apart. Trusting God is a way of life. It is a daily choice to say, Lord, I place my life in your hands. Not just the parts I understand, not just the moments that make sense, but all of it. I surrender my plans, my worries, my future, my very life to you. That kind of trust is not always easy. It requires us to let go of control. It requires us to lay down our pride, to release our grip on the things we think we can manage. It requires faith, a kind of faith that says, even when I don't understand, even when I cannot see the way forward, I will trust you. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He places them in the ground and covers them with soil, and for a time there is nothing to see, no signs of growth, no evidence that anything is happening. But the farmer does not dig up the seeds in frustration. He does not walk away in doubt. He waits because he knows the process. He knows that even though he cannot see it, life is forming beneath the surface. That is what trust looks like. We place everything in God's hands and we believe, even when we cannot see, even when nothing seems to be happening, even when all we have is faith, that He is at work. We see this trust throughout Scripture. Noah built an ark when there was no sign of rain. Moses stretched out his staff before the sea had parted. David stood before Goliath when all he had was a sling and 5 stones. Again and again, we see men and women who placed their lives in God's hands before they saw the miracle, before the breakthrough came, before they had all the answers. And God was faithful every time. Some of you are waiting for a sign before you trust. You are waiting for God to prove Himself before you surrender. But faith does not wait for proof. Faith steps forward, even when the outcome is unknown. There is nothing safer, nothing more secure than placing your life in the hands of the one who created you. He is not just the God of the universe. He is the God who knows your name. He is the God who sees your struggles, who hears your prayers, who walks with you through every valley and every storm. And when you trust Him, truly trust Him, you will find that the very things you were afraid of losing were never yours to carry in the first place. The storms may come, the trials may rise, but you will not be shaken, because your life is not built on shifting sand, it is built on the rock. And when the winds blow, when the waters rise, when everything around you seems uncertain, you will stand firm. Not because you have all the answers, not because you are strong on your own, but because you have placed your life in the hands of the one who never fails. So today, right now, make the decision. Stop holding on to what you were never meant to carry. Stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Release it all. Place everything in His hands. And when you do, you will find that you are not falling. You are finally free.